The what? Julian asked, looking between the elder and the bonded pair. Before the Great Transition, Cassiopeia explained, her silver eyes never leaving Lydia and Nyx. Our most sacred texts spoke of a future where voidwalkers would find balance, through communion with younger species. Not as predators or guardians, but as true symbionts. We dismissed it as myth, as the delusions of our ancestors. Because the truth was too difficult to face. Another elder, Vega, said quietly, that our isolation was always meant to be temporary, that we would eventually need to trust others with our power. The moment of revelation was interrupted by the station's alarm system blaring to life. Director Hartman's voice came through, the comm system, tight with controlled panic. All senior personnel to the command center immediately. We have multiple unidentified objects approaching the station. They're absorbing all light and energy in their path. Julian's blood ran cold. The Umbra? Impossible, Elder Rigel insisted. They cannot perceive us through the nectar's dampening effect. But they can perceive us, Zara realized, looking at Lydia and Nyx. The energy spike when you bonded, when you awakened, it must have been detected. No, Cassiopeia said, her ancient eyes widening with terrible understanding. Not detected. Summoned. What do you mean, summoned? Julian demanded. The Umbra did not find us by accident 10,000 years ago, Cassiopeia revealed, her voice heavy with the weight of hidden history. They were called by those who feared our influence, those who saw our guardianship as interference. You're saying someone deliberately exposed your people to these predators? Emery asked, shocked by the implication. The great betrayal? Lydia and Nyx said in unison, accessing memories that had been locked away in the deepest recesses of Voidwalker history. Those we protected turned against us, fearing our power more than the darkness beyond. Another alarm sounded, this one indicating imminent danger. The station's lights flickered as something began drawing power from its systems. We need to evacuate, Julian said, already moving toward the emergency protocols panel. If these entities consume energy, the station is a buffet. Evacuation is futile, Elder Vega stated flatly. The Umbra move between dimensions. Distance is meaningless to them. Then what do we do? Tenzin asked, already preparing emergency medical supplies for what promised to be a crisis. All eyes turned to Lydia and Nyx, who stood calm amid the growing chaos, their bonded consciousness seemingly untouched by the panic around them. We remember who we were meant to be, they said together, their voices resonating with newfound purpose, and who we can become together. The bonded pair moved toward the center of the medical bay, their synchronized movements fluid and deliberate. The geometric patterns on their skin brightened until they seemed to be constructed of pure light. The resonance matrix, they instructed, gesturing to the artifact. It's not just a record keeper, it's a key. Understanding dawned on Emery's face. A key to what? To awakening the network, Cassiopeia breathed, ancient knowledge resurfacing. To activating the defenses our ancestors left dormant, the artifact responded to their words, rising once more and beginning to rotate, faster and faster until it was a blur of crystalline facets and light. Energy cascaded from it in waves, washing over everyone present. Commander Blackwood, Lydia and Nyx addressed Julian, their eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the station's walls. We need to reach the command center. The Umbra will target the station's core first. They feed on concentrated energy. Julian hesitated only briefly before nodding. Security team escort detail. We're heading to command. As they moved through the station's corridors, emergency lighting cast everything in pulsing red. Through viewport windows they could see them, voids in space, areas of perfect darkness that seemed to consume not just light but reality itself, moving inexorably toward Hemera Station. They remember us, Elder Cassiopeia said softly, watching the approach of humanity's most ancient predator. After all this time, they still hunger for what we once were. Not what you were, Lydia and Nyx corrected, their bonded voice carrying through the corridor. What you are about to become again. The command center was a scene of controlled chaos when they arrived. Director Hartman stood at the central console, barking orders as personnel worked frantically to reinforce shields and power systems. "Commander," she acknowledged Julian briefly before her gaze fixed on the bonded pair and the Voidwalker elders. "I hope someone has an explanation for what's heading toward my station." "They're called the Umbra," Julian explained succinctly. "Ancient predators that feed on consciousness and energy, and apparently we've got their attention." Hartman's expression hardened. "Recommendations?" Before anyone could respond, the station shuddered violently. Alarms blared as systems began failing across multiple sectors. "Hull breach in Research Module 7, a technician reported. "Energy systems failing throughout the station. Whatever these things are, they're literally eating through our defenses. Conventional weapons are useless against them," Elder Rigel stated. "They exist partially outside normal space-time." "Then what can harm them?" Hartman demanded. Lydia and Nix stepped forward, the resonance matrix floating before them like a guide. "Not harm," they corrected. "Repel. The Umbra cannot consume certain energy frequencies, those created by the harmonic resonance between Voidwalker and human consciousness." "A theory that has never been tested," Elder Vega reminded them, though without her earlier dismissiveness. "Until now," Lydia and Nix replied, their unified gaze turning to Zara. "Professor Okafor, your expertise in consciousness transference protocols is needed. The resonance matrix can amplify our bond, project it as a shield, but we need your help to synchronize with the station's broadcast systems." Zara's mind raced, calculating possibilities. "You want to use the station's communication array to project your consciousness harmonic? That's never been attempted at this scale. The alternative is watching the Umbra consume this station and everyone on it," Julian pointed out grimly. "After which they'll likely follow the Voidwalker vessels back to their homeworld." Another violent shudder ran through the station. Lights failed completely before emergency systems engaged. "Multiple hull breaches," the technician reported, fear evident in her voice. "Structural integrity failing in modules 3 through 6. Containment fields barely holding." Director Hartman looked at Lydia and Nix, then at the approaching darkness visible through the command center's main viewport. "Do it," she ordered. "Whatever you're planning, do it now." Zara moved quickly to the communications console, her fingers flying across the interface. "I'm reconfiguring the array to project neural patterns rather than standard communications signals. It's going to drain what's left of our power reserves." "Better than saving power for enemies to consume," Hartman replied grimly. The resonance. Matrix began to pulse in harmony with the patterns on Lydia and Nix's skin, growing brighter as Zara's modifications took effect. The bonded pair stood at the center of the command center, their forms beginning to blur at the edges as they accessed the full extent of their shared consciousness. "We need to amplify the resonance," they said, their voice echoing strangely in the confined space. "The bond must expand." They turned to face the Voidwalker elders, their eyes luminous with purpose. "Join with us," they urged. "Remember who you were meant to be." Elder Cassiopeia stepped forward first, her ancient face resolute. "I will join the bond." "The Council has not authorized," Elder Rigel began, but Cassiopeia cut him off. "The Council has hidden behind fear for 10,000 years, she said sharply. "I choose to remember our purpose." She reached out, placing her hands on Lydia and Nix's shoulders, allowing their energy to flow into her. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Cassiopeia's form flared with renewed luminescence, the silver markings on her skin transforming into the same geometric patterns that adorned Lydia and Nix. The resonance matrix responded, pulsing brighter, projecting its energy through the station's communication array. One by one, the other elders stepped forward, joining the expanding bond. With each addition, the energy field grew stronger, more coherent, extending outward from the command center in waves that rippled through the fabric of reality itself. Julian watched in awe as Lydia, or the being that Lydia had become, orchestrated this impossible communion. Through the viewport, he could see the Umbra hesitate in their approach, the perfect darkness of their forms rippling with what might have been uncertainty. "It's working," Zara confirmed, monitoring the energy readings. "The harmonic frequency is destabilizing the Umbra's dimensional coherence. They can't maintain their presence in our space-time while this field is active." The darkness beyond the station began to retreat, pulling back from the expanding shield of harmonized consciousness. But as it withdrew, something unexpected happened. Tendrils of shadow reached out not to attack but as if testing, probing, communicating. Lydia and Nyx's bonded consciousness expanded further, touching these tendrils, establishing contact with what had always been seen as an implacable enemy. "They're not what we thought," they said, their voice distant as if speaking from across vast gulfs of understanding. "Not just predators. They're balancers, drawn to excess, to unchecked power." "You're saying they attacked the Voidwalkers because their power was unchecked?" Julian asked, struggling to comprehend. "Not attacked. Balanced," the bonded consciousness replied. "When energy and consciousness exist without limitation, without groundedness, they create disruptions in the cosmic order. The Umbra respond to these disruptions." Elder Cassiopeia, now fully integrated into the bond, spoke with newfound comprehension. "Our ancestors didn't understand. They saw only threat, not purpose. The human element, it provides the balance we always lacked, anchors our energy in physical reality." Through the viewport, the darkness continued to recede, but not in fear or defeat, rather in acknowledgement, in recognition of balance restored. As the immediate threat subsided, the bonded consciousness began to separate, individuals emerging from the shared experience. Lydia and Nyx remained at the center, their connection unbroken, but the elders gradually withdrew, their ancient forms forever changed by what they had experienced. The resonance matrix slowly descended to hover before Lydia and Nyx, its purpose fulfilled for now. "What just happened?" Director Hartman demanded, looking between the transformed Voidwalkers and the retreating darkness beyond the station. Lydia smiled, her eyes still shimmering with silver light. "The beginning of something new," she said, her voice once again, her own, though harmonized by her bond with Nyx. "The remembering of something ancient." "And the Umbra?" Julian asked, watching the last traces of darkness disappear into the depths of space. "They will return when needed," Nyx replied, her voice complementing Lydia's perfectly. "When balance must be restored, but not as enemies, as counterweight." Elder Cassiopeia stepped forward, her ancient face bearing the marks of profound transformation. "The council must be reconvened," she declared. "After 10,000 years, the Voidwalkers must remember their true purpose. Not isolation, but communion. Not guardianship alone, but partnership." "And humanity?" Hartman asked, ever focused on the practical implications. "What does this mean for us?" Lydia and Nyx exchanged a glance, their bond humming with possibilities that stretched across stars and centuries. "An invitation," they said together, "to become more than either of us could be alone." As the emergency lights dimmed and the station's systems began to recover, Zara looked at the neural pattern display still active on her console. The harmonic resonance of human and Voidwalker consciousness continued to pulse, stable and strong, creating something the universe had never seen before, and would soon see much more of. "The whispers of the void," she murmured, understanding at last what her instruments had been detecting all along. They weren't threats. They were calling us home. Awakening 1 month after the Umbra encounter, the observation dome of Hemera Station had been transformed. Once a simple viewing platform for astronomical phenomena, it now served as the nexus for the most ambitious diplomatic initiative in human history. At its center stood a crystalline structure, an amplified resonance matrix constructed from the original artifact, now augmented with technology from both species. Dr. Lydia Winters stood before it, her transformed appearance still startling even to those who had grown accustomed to it. The luminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsed gently in time with her heartbeat, and her eyes, now permanently silver-flecked, reflected starlight differently than any humans should. Beside her, perfectly synchronized in stance and movement, stood Nyx, her obsidian skin bearing identical patterns that mirrored Lydia's exactly. "Are you ready?" Lydia asked, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that hadn't been present before the bonding. Nyx's silver gaze met hers, their consciousness flowing between them like a river connecting two oceans. "The delegates have arrived," she confirmed. "The summit of awakening can begin." Around the perimeter of the dome, representatives from both civilizations had gathered. The human delegation, scientists, diplomats, military officers, wore expressions ranging from cautious optimism to thinly veiled fear. Opposite them stood the Voidwalker Council of Elders, their ancient forms now bearing the early signs of transformation, with faint geometric patterns just beginning to emerge beneath their obsidian skin. At the forefront of the human delegation, Director Hartman conferred quietly with Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Voidwalkers, a distinguished diplomat named Ibrahim Khalid. Beside them stood Commander Julian Blackwood, his security team positioned strategically throughout the dome. "You understand that what we witnessed today cannot be undone," Ambassador Khalid murmured to Hartman. "If we proceed, human civilization will be irrevocably changed." Hartman's eyes never left Lydia's transformed figure. "Human civilization has already changed, Ambassador. The question is whether we embrace that change or resist it." Julian approached them, his expression guarded. "The resonance matrix is calibrated and ready. Dr. Khatri reports that the archaeological data has been fully integrated into the system." "And Professor Okafor?" Hartman inquired. "Monitoring neural harmonics from the auxiliary control room," Julian confirmed. "She says the frequency stability is unprecedented." Ambassador Khalid studied Julian carefully. "You've worked closely with Dr. Winters since this transformation began. Do you trust what she's become, Commander?" Julian's gaze shifted to Lydia, his professional demeanor momentarily giving way to something more personal. "I trust who she is, Ambassador. The transformation hasn't changed that." At the center of the dome, Lydia and Nyx stepped onto the raised platform surrounding the enhanced resonance matrix. The crystalline structure responded immediately, pulsing with energy that matched the patterns on their skin. Representatives of Earth and Void Haven. They addressed the gathered delegates, their voices overlapping in perfect harmony. "We welcome you to the first summit of awakening." The formal language did little to disguise the momentous nature of the gathering. This was no ordinary diplomatic meeting. It was the first step toward a fundamental reordering of two civilizations. 1 month ago, they continued, the encounter with the Umbra revealed truths that both our peoples had forgotten or never known. The Voidwalkers were not meant to exist in isolation, suppressing their true nature through synthetic means. Humans were not meant to develop alone, limited by their physical forms. Elder Cassiopeia stepped forward from the Voidwalker delegation, her ancient form now bearing the most pronounced transformation among the elders. "For 10,000 years, she addressed the gathering, my people have lived a half-existence, believing the lie that our isolation was necessary for the protection of all. We created the nectar to suppress our true nature, to hide from the Umbra, to prevent what we believed would be the destruction of countless civilizations. We were wrong," she admitted, her multi-toned voice resonating through the dome. "What we feared as destroyers were in fact balancers. What we abandoned as dangerous was in fact our purpose." From the human delegation, Dr. Emery Khatri moved to stand beside the elder, her tablet displaying archaeological data from dozens of worlds. "The evidence is now clear," she explained. "Before the Great Transition, Voidwalkers and early humans, along with many other species across the galaxy, existed in a state of symbiotic cooperation. The Voidwalkers provided guidance and protection, while the grounded physicality of species like humans provided stability and balance. Not dominance but partnership," Julian added, joining them at the center. "Not consumption, but communion." Lydia and Nyx placed their hands on the resonance matrix, causing it to flare with increased energy. What we are proposing today is nothing less than the restoration of that ancient balance, they said. A voluntary bond between our species, not universal or mandatory, but offered to those who choose it. Murmurs rippled through both delegations. While the broad outlines of this proposal had been shared in advance, hearing it stated so directly made the implications impossible to ignore. Ambassador Khalid stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his measured response. The potential benefits are indeed compelling. Enhanced lifespan, expanded consciousness, access to abilities we can barely comprehend. But the costs must also be acknowledged. Those who bond will no longer be fully human. They will become something else. As will those void walkers who choose to bond, Elder Rigel countered, his formerly resistant stance now tempered by what he had witnessed during the Umbra encounter. We too must surrender something of ourselves to this new existence. Not surrender, Lydia and Nyx corrected gently. Transform. What emerges is neither voidwalker nor human, but a third state of being that honors both origins while transcending their limitations. Director Hartman, ever practical, addressed the gathering. The medical and scientific teams have compiled extensive data on the physiological changes experienced by Dr. Winters. While profound, these changes appear to be stable and beneficial. Increased cellular regeneration, enhanced neural processing, expanded sensory perception, all without apparent negative side effects. "And what of the Umbra?" asked a human military officer from the back of the delegation. "How can we be certain they won't return in greater numbers once these bonds begin forming on a larger scale?" A ripple of concern passed through the human delegates. Despite the peaceful resolution of the previous encounter, the Umbra remained an unsettling concept for many. The Umbra respond to imbalance, Elder Cassiopeia explained. The unchecked power of unbonded voidwalkers created disruptions in the cosmic order that drew their attention. The human voidwalker bond creates a harmonized energy signature that maintains balance naturally. Think of them as antibodies in the cosmic organism, Emery suggested. They don't attack healthy cells, only those that have grown unchecked or unbalanced. Julian's security training made him skeptical. We're still talking about entrusting our security to entities we barely understand, as opposed to continuing a strategy of suppression and isolation that we now know was based on incomplete understanding, Lydia challenged, momentarily speaking with her individual voice rather than the bonded harmonic. The past month has allowed us to communicate with the Umbra in ways the ancient voidwalkers never attempted. They are not mindless predators, Julian. They are conscious entities fulfilling their own cosmic role. Nyx's voice joined hers once more as they addressed the broader concern underlying the question. The choice before us is not whether to risk engagement with the wider cosmos. That engagement is inevitable. The choice is whether we face it divided and limited, or united and whole. The resonance matrix pulsed strongly, projecting a holographic representation of the galaxy. Across its spiral arms, points of light appeared, ancient sites where voidwalkers had once maintained their network of guardianship and guidance. The network awaits reactivation, they explained. The structures our ancestors built still exist, dormant but intact. Through the bond we can restore what was lost, not as controllers or rulers, but as facilitators of a balanced cosmic community. Ambassador Khalid studied the galactic projection thoughtfully. And what of other species? There are 17 known spacefaring civilizations besides our own. Would they also be offered this bond? In time, yes, Elder Cassiopeia confirmed, each according to their readiness and willingness. The ancient records suggest that different species formed different types of bonds with the Voidwalkers, each unique and specially adapted to their nature. Director Hartman's pragmatic concerns surfaced again. The political implications for Earth are enormous. Some will embrace this opportunity immediately. Others will resist it vigorously. We could be looking at profound societal divisions. No, one is suggesting universal or mandatory bonding, Lydia assured her. This must remain a matter of individual choice. but the opportunity should be available to those who seek it. And what of those who choose to remain fully human? Julian asked, the question clearly personal for him. Lydia's gaze met his, her silver-flecked eyes softening. They remain valued and essential members of our shared future, Julian. The bond enhances, but it does not make better, merely different. Throughout the dome, conversations erupted among both delegations as the implications were discussed and debated. The Voidwalker elders conferred in their melodic language, while human diplomats huddled in intense discussion. Ambassador Khalid finally raised his hand for silence. What you are proposing represents the most profound change in human history since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what might be possible. Such a decision cannot be made lightly or quickly. Nor should it be. Lydia and Nyx agreed. But today we can take the first step, a formal recognition that both our species are willing to explore this path together, with appropriate caution and care. Elder Cassiopeia stepped forward, her ancient form now radiant with purpose renewed. The Council of Elders has already voted. After 10,000 years of hiding our true nature, we choose to remember who we were meant to be. We choose to offer the bond to humanity, freely and without reservation. All eyes turned to Ambassador Khalid, who carried the authority of Earth's united governance in this matter. He looked at Lydia, at what she had become, and saw not an alien transformation but a glimpse of humanity's potential future. On behalf of Earth, he said formally, I accept this historic opening. We will establish a joint commission to oversee the first voluntary bondings and study their effects. While universal adoption is neither expected nor required, the path forward shall be open to those who choose it. A palpable wave of emotion swept through the dome. Relief, excitement, trepidation. The moment stretched, pregnant with the weight of history being made. Lydia and Nyx placed their hands on the resonance matrix once more, causing it to emit a pulse of energy that rippled outward through the station and beyond, a cosmic announcement of something ancient being reborn. The awakening begins, they said, their harmonized voices filled with quiet wonder. 3 months later, Julian Blackwood stood alone in the privacy of his quarters, staring at the small crystal vial. In his hand, inside swirled a luminescent fluid, not the synthetic nectar that had sustained Voidwalkers for millennia, but something new. The fluid pulsed gently, as if alive, containing within it the essence of a Voidwalker who had volunteered to form a bond. The communication panel on his desk chimed softly. Incoming transmission from Earth Central Command, announced the station's AI. Accept, Julian said, setting the vial carefully on his desk before activating the screen. Admiral Helena. Chen's face appeared, her expression grave. Commander Blackwood, I've reviewed your latest security assessment regarding the bonding program. Yes, Admiral, Julian acknowledged, standing straighter. 27 human Voidwalker pairs have now completed the process, with another 40 in the preparation phase. All metrics indicate stable and positive outcomes. Your report is thorough as always, Commander, Chen noted, but I'm more interested in your personal assessment. You've observed this process from the beginning, closer than anyone in a command position. What's your honest evaluation of the situation? Julian considered his words carefully. The bonded pairs are remarkable, Admiral. They possess abilities we're still cataloging: enhanced healing, telepathic communication, energy manipulation on a scale we previously thought impossible. More importantly, they appear to retain their core personalities and ethical frameworks while gaining access to shared memories and knowledge spanning millennia. And the concerns about divided loyalties? Chen pressed. Are these still humans we can trust, or have they become something else entirely? Julian's gaze drifted to the vial on his desk. They've become something more, Admiral, but not something alien to us. If anything, they understand humanity more deeply than before. They're not replacing us. They're expanding what it means to be us. Chen studied him intently through the screen. You're considering it yourself, aren't you? The bonding. Julian didn't deny it. I've been approved as a candidate, yes. The Voidwalker named Orion has offered to form the bond with me. May I ask why? You've had a distinguished career. You're being considered for promotion to station commander when Hartman retires next year. Why risk everything for this transformation? Julian considered the question that had occupied his thoughts for months. Because I've seen what's possible, Admiral. I've witnessed Lydia and the others accessing knowledge and abilities that could help us solve problems we've struggled with for centuries. Medical breakthroughs, clean energy systems, faster than light communication. The bonded pairs are already developing technologies that were theoretical just months ago. And what about Dr. Winters? Chen asked perceptively. Has your relationship with her influenced this decision? Julian smiled slightly. Lydia and I were close before her transformation. We remain close now, though in a different way. She's still herself, Admiral. Still the brilliant, compassionate scientist she always was. She's just more as well. Is that what you want? To be more? I want to serve in the most effective way possible, Julian answered honestly. If that means transforming myself to better understand and navigate this new reality, then yes, I'm willing to take that step. Chen nodded slowly. Your candidacy has been flagged for my personal review, Commander. You're one of our best and brightest. We need to be certain this is the right course. With respect, Admiral, isn't that my decision to make? In an ideal world, perhaps, Chen conceded. But we're in uncharted territory here. The implications, for command structure, security protocols, classified information, there are legitimate concerns that need addressing. Julian leaned forward. Then let me address them from the inside, Admiral. Let me be your eyes and ears within the bonded community. Who better to evaluate the security implications than someone trained to recognize them? Chen's expression remained neutral, but Julian could see she was considering his argument. Submit your final assessment after observing the next round of bondings, she finally said. After that, if you still wish to proceed, I won't stand in your way. Thank you, Admiral. After the transmission ended, Julian picked up the crystal vial again, watching the luminescent fluid swirl within. The decision wasn't final. He still had time to reconsider, but in his heart, he knew which path he would choose. A soft chime announced a visitor at his door. Enter, he called, setting the vial down once more. Lydia stepped inside, her transformed appearance still striking even after months of adjustment. The patterns beneath her skin pulsed gently in the dim light of his quarters. You spoke with Admiral Chen, she said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. The bonded pairs had developed an intuitive awareness that sometimes bordered on precognition. She's concerned about security implications, Julian confirmed. Can't say I blame her. This is unprecedented territory for our military structures. Lydia moved closer, studying his face. And you? Are you concerned? Not about security, he admitted. About losing myself sometimes. She smiled, the expression warming her silver-flecked eyes. I haven't lost myself, Julian. I've found parts of myself I never knew existed. The bond doesn't erase, it expands. Nix doesn't mind you visiting me alone? He asked, only half joking. Lydia's laugh was musical, carrying harmonics that human vocal cords shouldn't have been able to produce. The bond doesn't work that way. We're not possessive of each other. We're extensions of each other. Nix knows my feelings for you just as I know her respect for you. Julian's hand moved unconsciously to touch the vial. Is it painful? The transformation? Not painful, she reflected. Overwhelming at first, like trying to drink from a waterfall, but you learn to channel the flow to integrate the experiences. She paused, then added gently, It's your choice, Julian. No one will think less of you if you decide to remain as you are. And if I choose the bond? Her eyes met his, silver and brown merging like cosmic bodies in shared orbit. Then I'll be there to guide you through it, as others guided me. The first step in a journey unlike any you've imagined. From the viewport of his quarters, the stars shone with unwavering brilliance. Somewhere among them, the Umbra moved through the darkness between galaxies, maintaining their ancient vigilance. Elsewhere, on worlds circling distant suns, other species continued their own evolutionary journeys. unaware that an option once lost had been rediscovered. "The awakening is just beginning, isn't it?" Julian asked, seeing beyond the immediate moment to the centuries that would follow. "Yes," Lydia confirmed, her transformed consciousness perceiving timelines that stretched far beyond human reckoning. "What we've started here will ripple across galaxies and generations. Not an ending, but a restoration. A remembering of what was always meant to be." Julian made his decision then, though he would follow protocol and complete his final assessment. First. The path ahead was unclear, filled with challenges and possibilities he could barely comprehend. But one thing was certain. Humanity was stepping into a future more vast and wondrous than anyone had dared to imagine. As Lydia turned to leave, the patterns beneath her skin brightened momentarily, resonating with something beyond the room. Perhaps with Nyx, perhaps with the growing network of bonded pairs across the station, perhaps with something more cosmic and profound. "Until we meet again," she said, the phrase carrying layers of meaning that transcended its simple words. "Until then," Julian replied, knowing that when they next spoke he would be one step closer to understanding the universe she now inhabited, one step closer to his own awakening. After she departed, Julian moved to the viewport, gazing out at the star-filled expanse. Humanity had always looked to the heavens with wonder and trepidation, seeing in those distant lights both promise and peril. Now, they were becoming part of that cosmic tapestry in ways their ancestors could never have foreseen. Not as conquerors or as subjects, but as partners in an ancient dance of energy and consciousness that spanned the galaxies. The blood bond that had begun with a simple act of compassion, Lydia offering her essence to save a dying voidwalker, had grown into something that would reshape civilizations. The crystal vial pulsed on his desk, as if sensing his thoughts. Within it swirled not just the essence of a voidwalker named Orion, but the possibility of a future where the boundaries between species, between energy and matter, between individual and community, would be reimagined. Julian smiled as he turned from the stars to face that future, ready at last to take his place in the awakening.